Welcome to the Martin Gardner Celebration of Mind. And without further ado, I will introduce the first speaker, Ivars Peterson. Ivars, take it away.
Thank you. In my second chance to say something, I did mention that I had some correspondence with Martin Gardner. I even had a chance to visit him once. And I wanted to show you a letter that I received from him. It's on the screen here now. At that time, he was still living, this is 10 years ago, he was still living in Hendersonville, North Carolina. And I had written to him, I'd known him, as I said, since I was in the 9th grade, through his writings. And I was interested in Mobius strips at that time. I was writing a book about math and art, and I heard there were various things. And I'd read all of the things that Martin Gardner had written about it. As always, I was always impressed with his generosity. He replied almost right away with a lengthy set of different kinds of things and so on. This is his typical letter. He typed them and then went through it again and corrected, changed things, underlined things, and so on. If you look at Bill Ritchie's letters, they're the same way. This is just the way he wrote and kept all his correspondence and so on. Put in little diagrams and so on. But not only his generosity, but his curiosity about things is what I want to emphasize here. And I'll come back to that initial example that he drew for me there. But the key word here is and open up for a big surprise. He loved those kinds of things. The other thing, and then he gave me a long list of things that he'd come across all related to Mobius strips. And he did much more than that. When I actually did visit him at his house, it was actually my whole family and I visited him at his house, there was rooms set aside just filled with filing cabinets and shelves full of the stuff that he'd collected in order to write his columns. So it was just tons of material, but he knew where things were and could find things. And so in this case, for Mobius strips, he quickly, an article that he'd seen in Time magazine, a mention of this in of a book with the mention of a Mobius strip. Another one, this is a ski trick called a Mobius flip. So, of course, there are all kinds of patents that involve the Mobius strip. This is the an abrasive belt. And he was continually collecting like this. This was a Mobius resistors, in this case, and a news story about that. Mobius zips and so on, and threw in this kind of thing, the Mathematics Student Journal, a little story called Paul Bunyan versus the Conveyor Belt. It's a famous story now. That was originally in April 1955. These are all labeled, they're all numbered, and it was the kind of record keeping he did in all kinds of ways. And this is just a sampling. The reason, one of the most interesting things that came out of it, it actually ended up in something that we're handing out here, which is a field guide to math on the National Mall. I found a reference to a Mobius strip on the wall. I knew of one, but this was a second one. And this was, in fact, on the, where do I have a photo of it? Somewhere, oh, here on the back page. Up there, in front of the National Museum of American History. It's a triangle that twists around and then rejoins itself. So it's just one side, one edge. And it's there, it's huge. But most people don't know of it as a kind of Mobius type of surface. It was from him that I first learned about it and then went looking for it and searching for it. And so one of the results was this brochure we've just put together for the festival this coming weekend of fun things to see on the mall that are math related. And you got a copy of that here. But I want to go back to the very first page. And is this his big surprise? And so this is your chance to do a little bit of math. You start with this, right? You create this figure here, right? So I'm following his instructions. And notice he said, I hadn't done anything new since December '68, except for this. This sort of really struck him. So this is just, again, typical of his stuff. All right, so if you look at the instructions, and what I want you to predict based on those instructions, you trisect the twisted band and bisect the untwisted one. One is just a straight band, the other one is a Mobius strip, in effect. But they're connected. Now, I'm going to trisect this one and bisect that one. What am I going to end up with? Think about it for a moment, and then we'll see. So, it'll take me a while to cut through this in just the right way. Probably should wear my glasses. So, see, most of you know, I think, Mobius band cutting strips, cutting tricks of various sorts.
Yeah, but this is different. I mean, it's topologically very different. It's a different genus. It has two holes.
So, any predictions? Okay, I'm just...
Something really simple or something really complicated.
Maybe just a completely no twist.
Okay, I've done the triple cut.
No twist.
Now I'm doing the single cut down the middle of the other band. Remember, it's already been split. So what you get... Well, you see, there is this little... But it's better than that. The other one, though, is a perfect rectangle.
Oh my.
You got a rectangle. So thank Martin Gardner for pointing that out. And no wonder he was a big surprise. So, thank you.
So, squaring the circle. Didn't know you could do that.